Hey there guys, welcome to Community Starcraft 2. I'm your host Sidewinder, and today I'm actually bringing you a little bit of a special presentation. This is going to be a best of 5 show match between WhiteRa, also known as WhiteRa, who's the red Protoss spawning up here on the top left of GSL's Terminus RE, and we're going to be taking a look at him fighting WhiteDIMAGA, who's from the team mTW. Spawning down here is a Teal Zerg. I believe this is a King of the Hill best of 5, like show match kind of thing. They've done a few of these before between WhiteRa and WhiteDIMAGA, but we're going to see exactly how this unfolds, and I will be bringing you all 5 games to see or show you guys how a typical series goes between these two guys. And against a show match, so they usually do stuff that's more fun to watch than just a typical game. Both these players do stream quite a bit, so I'd imagine that they're doing this largely for entertainment value. Not sure if any money is on the line or anything like that. I couldn't find a whole lot of information about this. But jumping straight into the game, WhiteRa is showing a quick just forge fast expand, which I'm sure that's what we're going to see here. WhiteDIMAGA is not choosing to punish it by going for any sort of early pool. He is taking his spawning pool on 13, and it looks like I would imagine he's going to be taking his gas here pretty soon to also get his Zergling speed. But you never know what kind of stuff these guys will pull out. WhiteRa does drop his forge here at his front door. A fairly late forge, actually. It looks like going down on 14. So he's going for a pretty greedy kind of forge fast expand here, which, I mean, on this map it's not that big a deal since the map is so big. But we'll see exactly how these two players handle the situations. There's really not a whole lot to say here in the early game. For those of you that are not familiar with either of these two players, they are definitely two of Europe's top players. WhiteRa in particular is such a nice guy. He has so much good stuff to watch if you're learning Protoss. And WhiteDIMAGA has been around for a long time. He's always been at super high levels when it comes to Starcraft 2. A little bit of harassment here from WhiteRa, trying to bug WhiteDIMAGA, not let him get his hatchery down when he wants to. The hatchery actually does go down, so the probe does get a little bit too far away and letting that go down. But WhiteRa is going to have to get out there with his Zergling. I'd imagine that probe is probably going to die. But WhiteRa is trying to deceive him and lead him in the wrong direction, since WhiteDIMAGA does not actually know where WhiteRa is. So a little bit of a mind game there from WhiteRa, and WhiteDIMAGA has to split off his Zerglings to see exactly where WhiteRa is, because he's not scouted him yet. WhiteRa's cannon will be up just in time to kill this Zergling. Zergling shouldn't push in too far. He's going to take one shot from him to get out of there. So he's just fine. WhiteRa is supply blocked for just a moment. That will be fixed as soon as his pylon finishes, and he'll be getting the rest of these probes out. Nexus is actually almost done, so WhiteRa went for a pretty fast Nexus. I think that went down on either 16 or 17. I wasn't totally sure. Probe tries to get back in here and see what he can get with his scouting information. Take a look at WhiteRa's vision. He actually will not see the spawning pool or any other tech inside there, but nevertheless, he shouldn't be expecting anything too unusual right now, considering breaking this usually requires something like a Baneling's Nest. WhiteRa is actually opting to keep a little space open to hold position on a Zealot right there, so we'll probably see a Zealot start here any second to wall that off. WhiteDIMAGA is going to be following this probe as far over as he can, and as soon as this probe turns, he's going to die. Down he goes. And WhiteRa is going to continue to macro until he is ready to drop his next stage of tech, which should be here any minute. I mean, he has the gas to drop a Stargate or robotics, so if he wants to go for that right away, I would imagine that here in any second, as soon as he is ready to do that, his Cybernetics core is now finishing, allowing him to get the next stage of tech. So kind of anxiously awaiting to see what he's going to do. He does opt to just start a sentry in his warp gate tech, and he is chrono boosting his warp gate tech, so if you see that from WhiteDIMAGA's point of view, you might think a quick a quick gateway push is imminent. But we'll see. WhiteDIMAGA is actually taking his third here, and he's got another hatchery on the way. I believe it's a macro hatch, yes, here in his main. Macro hatches this early usually signifies a lot of Zergling play, so we'll see if that's exactly what WhiteDIMAGA had in mind. WhiteRa does drop that Stargate here at the front door, and I don't think WhiteDIMAGA actually saw that. No, he doesn't. But nowadays, in the metagame of Protoss versus Zerg, Protoss has almost always grabbed that Stargate. It's something you can kind of assume if you're Zerg very safely. WhiteDIMAGA has full coverage on the map. He's holding all of these watchtowers with Zerglings, and his third is now operational. So WhiteRa's income is really going to erupt, and he knows he shouldn't be under too much pressure here from WhiteRa. We'll see what WhiteRa opts to get out of that Stargate. It is going to be a Void Ray, and something that I see out of the GSL all the time is they'll zoom in and make note that you can actually see the outline of the Void Ray warping in there. So for you players that can see this Stargate spinning, you can actually see what's being made based upon that little outline right there. You can kind of see the little prong sticking out of where the Void Ray would be. So that's fairly interesting to know. WhiteRa is figuring that there's going to be some sort of Stargate play, so he does have his Spore Crawler coming up. I'm not sure if he actually saw the Stargate. No, he does not. But it's not a bad idea to kind of throw down these blind Spore Crawlers anyway, because they'll protect you from both Stargate play and Dark Templar play. WhiteRa is now getting a Phoenix to follow this up. One thing that's really popular in this matchup is getting a Void Ray and a bunch of Phoenixes and rallying them to your Void Ray, and then that usually forces out Hydralisks from the Zerg so that you can transition into Colossus play. So WhiteRa is already a step ahead. He does have his robotics coming up here, as well as a couple of extra gateways. Doesn't necessarily mean he's going to go Colossus, but it's a really good transition. He's going to be trying to charge up on this Spore Crawler that's not done building yet. Another Spore Crawler roots, and this Void Ray is taking just a little bit of damage. He is going to stop that Spore Crawler from coming up, but WhiteRa wisely cancels it. And WhiteRa is not going to get a ton of work done here, so he's just going to split off and get a little bit of scouting done while he has the time, and while he transitions into his next stage. And indeed, that does actually force a Hydralisk Den out of WhiteRa. And the interesting thing about that is that WhiteRa could say, well, he's probably just going to go for Colossus right after that anyway, and Colossus really fry up Hydralisk, and we can see the robotics bay coming down. But at the same time, you really have to respect the Stargate stuff from Protoss, because if you don't respect that, and all of a sudden they show up with a bunch of Void Rays that you're not expecting, you might just be dead right there. And WhiteRa does pick off the drone that was ready to set up the fourth here, so WhiteRa planning that out perfectly and intercepting that, delaying that hatchery for just a little bit longer. This is a weird version of this map in which the third only has these 5 mineral patches as far as I can tell, and there's no second gas here, so taking this expansion is actually really kind of not that great. On this version, I do believe there were no rocks at the expansion as well, so you can see a fresh one does not have rocks, whereas they changed that in the official Blizzard version. And wow, WhiteRa is really flooding out the Hydralisks right now. You can see a bunch of Hydralisks rallying here. There's 9 more on the way, so WhiteRa may just want to go for a timing before too many Colossus get up and try to break WhiteRa down right now. So we'll see if that really does any damage, but if he does not do enough damage with that and these Colossus get out in too large of numbers, those Hydralisks are going to be toast. Colossus really wreck up Hydralisks pretty badly. But WhiteRa is showing a lot of Phoenix here. Phoenix are coming in here, and if you can pick off a couple of Hydralisks right here without losing any Phoenix, that's really valuable. So WhiteRa, oh, he almost got that, but WhiteRa actually transfused a couple of times on his queens. He's actually pulling his queens as well, as you can see them walking across. This is such cool play from both these players. A bunch of Zerglings now spawning, 6 more Hydralisks, so this is going to be quite a big push here from WhiteRa. These Hydralisks are so slow, but once they're on your front door, they put out so much damage that WhiteRa is going to have a really hard time holding this off, but we'll see what this Colossus is able to get done. Only 3 sentries in here, but they're all at full energy. If he can force field right here and split these off, no, he misses his force field, so WhiteRa is going to have to come around here and re-engage. He's going to probably have to abandon this expansion here in just a moment, at least with his probes. Decent force fields here, but there's a surround coming down and nice force fields here from WhiteRa. The Colossus actually drops from Hydralisk fire. This is looking really, really bad for WhiteRa. Phoenix are over here trying to kill as many Hydralisks as possible, and you can see them all dropping here. A couple more Hydralisks get picked up. This is wonderful Phoenix work here from WhiteRa, but his ground army is really getting dominated. The Void Ray is focusing down Hydralisk. As you can see, it is now charged. So WhiteRa actually holds that off. Here comes another Colossus coming up here to press up, try to get rid of the rest of these Hydralisks. If you're WhiteRa right now, this is kind of a bad rally on these Hydralisks, but he is taking out a lot of Phoenix. And if he can get these sentries down, that'll be pretty important, and he does get most of them. There's only 1 sentry standing. So interesting engagement there. In terms of units lost, WhiteRa actually lost more, but his economy is a little bit better at this point, or at least it has been for a little while. They're looking almost even right now. But once WhiteRa gets the space a little more saturated, he's going to be in pretty good shape. There's a lot of idle probes here that are not mining gas at all. There's 3 idle probes actually at a time just sitting there. We'll have to see WhiteRa pull at least 1 more, or rather 2 more Ox. I think there's still 2 more sitting there. So a little bit of a mistake, but getting back into this, WhiteRa still continuing to produce Void Rays and his Colossi. So the Void Rays are still there because they still put out a ton of damage. Obviously, Hydralisk will kill Void Rays in a straight-up fight. But if you have these Colossus here, they spit out so much damage on top of these Hydralisks, and they splash on them. The Hydralisks die really easy to Colossus Fire, and it makes for an interesting battle, at least if Zerg can get something else out to deal with both these at the same time. Excuse me. Up come a few more Hydralisks. Damaga is really going to attack into a Meat Grinder here if he sticks with his attack. Now he has to, since these Hydralisks are so slow. So he's going to come in here and really get roasted up pretty badly. You can see the Hydralisks are trying to target the Void Rays. They actually kill both of them, and yes, they both do go down. But there's still 2 Colossi standing, and the Colossi number will swell. So Daimaga really needs to come up with an answer to this, as WhiteRa is now well ahead in the supply. There's a bunch more Zerglings and Hydralisks being rallied here, but this is just Colossus food. I think this is a bad play here by Daimaga to stick with this unit composition. You really probably want to get out Corruptors or Infestors at this point to deal with these Colossi before you engage with your ground army if you possibly can. But here come the Infestors now. Pathogen glands are on the way. So the Infestation Pit did drop when we weren't paying attention to Damaga's base. So we can see it right there, swelling and researching that upgrade. Kind of looks like a crab. I always thought that was such a weird building. But up comes WhiteRa's force. He's going to be sieging the expansion. There's no force fields here, so the Daimaga's units are going to get a full surround. He's trying to take down these Colossi as soon as possible, but you can see these Hydralisks are just so frail. They fall really fast. He does kill 2 Colossi, which isn't bad, but now he needs to reinforce and get Infestors out as soon as possible to get the rest of this down.